Yeah, welcome to this 60 Scoop interview. My name is Jackson Dionne. I'm the Executive Director of Indigenous Wellness Training Society. It's based upon 5 drivers of empowerment, which are recovery, education, employment, culture, life skills. And we're here with Sharon Gladue, who's from Devon, Alberta. And yeah, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, good day. My name is Sharon Gladue. I am a 60 Scoop survivor. I was apprehended in the North Battleford area in Saskatchewan, and I was adopted out into an all-Caucasian community on the outskirts of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And currently, I reside in Devon, Alberta.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So, yeah, as we know, like many 60 Scoop survivors, I'm one myself, grew up with seeing healthy family relationships. What has love, commitment, and family come to mean for us today, and who taught us these lessons? Like, so basically, it's all just about, yeah, love, commitment, and family. From what I could sort of see, a lot of the 60 Scoop uh, people that I know are kind of like living single and stuff like that. Like I don't know. I know about how many. Well, most some are on my board, and I don't know. But yeah. So what has it taught us about love, commitment, and family? Like for me too, as well. Family is important. Like I was married at one time, but because I didn't have family, so her family became really important to me. So I was just wondering what your thoughts are about that.
That's a good question. Where I was adopted out to, they had no unconditional love. They didn't shower. My sister and I, who we were both adopted out into that family, half German and half Scottish family, and we never felt the unconditional love. But prior to our apprehension, I do remember our biological parents and our community that they did shower us with unconditional love. So we knew the difference in our adopted home. I myself, growing up, knew that it was the situation was very wrong, and I knew that one day that I would either become a social worker or an RCMP member to try and change the system. As I grew, and it was very prevalent how my life story changed into like many losses, loss of community, language, and family, and the land that I once belonged to, and my language and my culture, and that stripped me from any type of links or lineage to love. So now that I've come to think about it, the all those losses has really empowered me to think later on in life. Well, if I didn't grow up with unconditional love, I will start my own family and I will shower them with unconditional love so they can shower me back with the unconditional love. And it just so happened that my firstborn son, I had he was 7 months old when I lost him to pericarditis meningitis. And so, talking about going back 10 to 20 steps backwards in my life, and I was very suicidal. I was very down, depressed, and grieving, not knowing what grief was at a very young age. And so I've learned some coping mechanisms. I did reach out to some individuals that would help me out with my mental health, and so I did find resources and ways to be able to cope with the losses, and to be able to find a way where I can actually be loved. And that was with the unconditional love when I had my children, and who are now adult children. And there's not a day that goes by when I tell them that I love them, and my children always will tell me that they love me as well too. My late husband, he passed away in 2019, and so I am walking the earth now. I'm single, and I feel very empowered. I really don't feel like I'm walking this path alone either, and not realizing at a young age that later on in life that Creator always walked with me, and also my spirit guide. So I did now think about it after all those losses. I've finally found love where I should be at this point in time, which I'm 57 years old.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I feel that Creator's presence too in guiding and going. I see a lot of people, like especially on reserves, like other than 60 Scoop, a lot of losses are happening, but I think it leads to kind of like trust. So trust, I guess, has been broken early in life. What has helped you to learn to trust others again, like, and or what remains difficult still?
Well, I've taken a lot of workshops, and I did get into social work and Indigenous social work practice, where that is just a wonderful, wonderful program to take. And so I've learned how to trust individuals by learning how to trust myself in learning and where to learn and who to learn from. And so with this Indigenous social work practice that I'd taken years ago, it really helped me open up my eyes as to the truth of what happened to the Indigenous people in Canada. And it was a genocidal act. And so that really empowered me to be able to start making changes in my own life, to be able to help people out there to make those changes. We are the landowners, and it has taken me a long time to realize that, and that to being able to find out your rights and following your rights. And so I've started taking courses on of course, child welfare, but also the 60 Scoop and what happened with the 60 Scoop, and also the MMIWG. And so I've taken courses which made me become a really good, strong advocate here in Alberta. And so learning how to trust it has taken me a long ways, where I had to build that trust, but also I had to sit in uncomfortable situations and in rooms and in circles to be able to have those and carry those conversations with those people that help build that lack of trust. Now, I'll always pointed out that to the whoever I worked with, and when I was advocating with for the families of the missing and murdered Indigenous people here in Alberta, I had to sit with law enforcement. I had to sit with Crown prosecutors, and I also had to sit with the coroner's office for these families. And so it's learning how to being able to sit in those circles has been able to let me trust trust the process. There's a lot that I don't trust the people, but if I follow the process and I remind others about this, there's a process as well too. I think it's a lot easier to build that trust and to be able to point that out when people are starting to take that trust and or not show that trust, because I think trust is actually something that we really need in life. To be able to, walk Mother Earth in a healthy way. Like if we don't trust one another, then we're left to ourselves to fend for ourselves, and that's not how we should be living. And so, I knew at a young age that like being raised in this home was so wrong. I knew it. And I did get beat over it. I did get whipped because I had a mouth, and because I knew it was wrong how I was being treated. And so I knew that trust was a huge issue right from a young age. And but growing up, I've learned how to process that trust, where I can either take it and run with it, or be able to put up barriers and walls where I don't need that in my life, and it does not serve me any purpose. And so, yes, trust is a huge issue for us Indigenous people, and it's especially ones that grew up in the child welfare system. And trusting, I trust my family so much now, and it's built over the course of the years, right from holding your firstborn child, that child trusts you. I trusted my mom to protect me when I was born, and my little tiny mind. But at the same time, in the systems, the government system, broke that. And so it took a while to be able to trust my mom, when I was found my family again. But again, that trust, when I started talking to her and sharing what happened to my sister and I could just tell that that trust was building real fast, because she held me when I was crying, and I missed her so much during those times when I was away from her. And every time I had a birthday, or every time a celebratory event happened when I had a child, I often wondered about my mom. And so growing up that way, it really brought me to a point in time where I wanted to be able to trust people and these processes. But the system is something that I don't think I'll ever trust. And I do strongly believe in processes, though, and that is something that I really strive for, and it's something that I think Indigenous people actually created, and to be able to help trust each other was to be able to, like processes and protocols, and so I value that in my life, and trust is something that you don't mess around with, and it's taken me a long, long time to be able to trust the process, for sure.
Mm. Yeah, you mentioned something about like fending for ourselves. I find that a lot of 60 Scoop, that's what we sort of do. Like there's no one here guiding us or helping us. And so we basically crawled our way out of a hole ourselves, like relying, well, that's what I see a lot of 60 Scoop, they just take charge of the situation, you know what I mean?
Right.
And we just go and get it done. So in that sense, we're about breaking the cycles, wanting to break intergenerational cycles as you're doing with your family. And what choices or practices have helped you create different relationships, like with your family or community?
One of the things that I've learned over the course of time, it happened to me, but it didn't. It wasn't an eye opener until I saw this movie. It was a Christian movie called Courageous, and in that movie, it talked about how the young African American people, the young males, where they were incarcerated, high incarceration, and there was a study down there that had indicated that those young African American males, when they were incarcerated, it was because they didn't have any structure, male structure back home. They had no father. They had nothing to be able to guide them. I had an adopted father, and Les Zorb was his name. He was a very kind man, but we rarely saw him because he worked in the mines. And he helped us, my sister and I, flourish our self-esteem. And he always told us to be proud of who we were, even though we were in in a cesspool of racism in an all-Caucasian community. And so it was really difficult to be able to understand what he was talking about until later on in life, when he said to be proud of who we were. And that was being an Indigenous woman. And later on in life, as I was growing after my loss of my son and going into these toxic relationships, I was at a point in my life where I wanted to end my life because I didn't see any way out. And I was 23 years old. I had I had three children at the time. My fourth one, that's the one that was in heaven. I ended up waking up one morning, and I thought I would end my life. And I was very distraught that morning. And again, I was in a very toxic relationship. And so I woke up and I was just feeling very, very stressed out, and my children were still sleeping. And so I prayed to God, and I just gave God the ultimatum. Today's the day. If you don't show me a shine, then I'm ending my life today. There was a voice in my head that told me to go and make coffee. And so I, I was like a zombie, and I went to go make the coffee, and then in my head there was a voice, and it wasn't my voice either. It was a male. It sounded like a male voice, and it said, "Go get the newspaper." And so I went and I got the newspaper, and it was at the newspaper dispenser was just down the street, and so I quickly went and grabbed a newspaper, and then I sat it back down on the table, my coffee and the newspaper, and then voice in my head told me, said, read. And so I started reading the Edmonton Sun, and this was back in 1993, 94 era. And I ended up reading that Edmonton Sun, and I got to the portion where it said the employment and training portion of the newspaper. And I flipped over that one page, and right on that second page in full advertisement was a article, and it said Dr. James Battle Self-Esteem Program for Youth. And I read the criteria, and I fit the criteria. I had called them. I called the lady that picked up. She said that the class was full, but I could put my name down on the wait list. And I was a bit dismayed, but I left my name with her. Well, the next morning, she called me and she said, Sharon, we have some cancellations. Can you be down here by 10 o'clock? And I said, absolutely, I can. And I took my children with me. And that was the very first start of a self-esteem program with Dr. James Battle. And he was a world-renowned self-esteem psychologist who just recently passed away. He was the one who picked me up, dusted me off, and set me on my path. And I do believe in that movie Courageous when they say that when an individual doesn't have a male father figure in their life, that they tend to go to jail. And so I had these male figures in my life that I've actually been, who's been mentoring me and who's been guiding me. And I did take a self-esteem course through Dr. James Battle, who I'm very grateful for. And also, I have a brother-in-law, and he married my oldest sister on my dad's side, and he's a Caucasian. And when my sister and I were being put up for adoption, my older sister and her husband applied to adopt us. And so they contacted Children's Services in Saskatchewan to inquire if they could bring us to their place and foster and then adopt us. Children's Services said no, because they frowned upon interracial relationships at that time. And so we went into the system. And for years, my brother-in-law and my sister, they were searching for us, and they couldn't find us. And so when we did come back into the back home, we were found by another sister. And the first time I met them, my brother-in-law, all he could do was cry, and I couldn't understand why. But it wasn't until a couple of years later when he explained the story that they tried to adopt us, and Children's Services said no. And so my sister on my dad's side passed away a few years ago, and my brother-in-law is, still a huge part of the family. And so now he's mentoring me, and he's pushing me, and he's encouraging me to write my book. And so I've had these people in my life that have really helped me thrive and grow, and to be able to to be able to advocate and for the 60 Scoop survivors, and tell them that we need to know what happened during the height of the 60 Scoop, and why is the news only saying that there's 25,000 of us that were apprehended during the 60 Scoop, when I was at the table. I sat across from those lawyers for the federal class action lawsuit. I sat across from the lawyers and the judge, Judge Shore, and we asked those questions. How many children were actually apprehended during the height of the 60s scoop? And their response was there was over 135,000 of us that were apprehended. And now only the news states 25,000. So my brother-in-law, who's encouraging me to, is always asking me where we are at about the national inquiry. And so I've been pushing for the 60 Scoop movement to be acknowledged since 1998 was my very first PowerPoint presentation that I did with Grant MacEwan University in Edmonton. So I've been pushing for, to get us acknowledged, to find out what happened to us during the height of the 60 Scoop.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you mentioned the movie there, and I think like I was thinking about this yesterday, and because this world seems to be wanting to tear me down, but I like that movie Unbroken, where that it's I think Angelina Jolie created it, but yeah, so that gets me to think about the hard times, like what has carried you through the hardest moments, like who or what helped you keep going, like when giving up seemed easier. I think you mentioned it a little bit there, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, my mom told me a story. My biological mom told me a story. When I was 2 years old, I contacted double bronchial pneumonia, and it says so in my child welfare record as well. And I was hospitalized, and I was dying. I almost died. And my mom and my dad went into a ceremony, and while I was in the hospital dying, my parents crawled into a sweat lodge, and they went in, and the elder there gave me my spirit name, which is Blue Thunder Woman, Sipikupe Su Squeo. And that spirit name has saved me. And I believe, and I didn't realize this until a few years ago, when I went to this community, Cold Lake First Nation, and I was doing a missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls presentation at a MMIWG gathering there, and there was an elder who stood up and was explaining some of the cultural and traditional ways of what happened in the back before colonization, when people went missing, or how they went to go look for animals, and they used the night lodges. And what happened was he also told us that to get a spirit name, every single one of us should get a spirit name, because that is what's going to save us, and that's what's going to protect us. All my life, I've wondered why I felt like I had this big, huge shadow behind me. And after I lost my son, when my son passed away, I was 19 years old, and I went looking for ways so I could die to be with my son. And I would put myself in precarious situations. I'd be walking down dark alleys. I'd go to these wild parties, and it was Creator who managed, or my spirit guide, whatever it was, managed to be able to get me out of those situations. And so I strongly believe that it was my spirit name that helped guide and protect me throughout my life, and also my spirit guide. I didn't realize any of this growing up, and because everything was so either by the Bible or by the government system. And so they don't have, like, the government system, there's no spirit in there. There's spirit in the Bible, but that's not what I wanted to follow. My heart was not into the Bible. And so when I started going back into the Indigenous way and learning about our way of life, and how so connected that we are with spirit and with Creator, that we can pray for guidance, and we can pray for protection. And I didn't know any of this. I was always taught that you don't pray for things for yourself, but you pray for others. That was the Brethren in Christ church that I was forced to go to in my adopted home. And I knew in my heart back then that this was wrong. This was not my way. In my little 8-year-old brain, that it was not my way, and I needed to find something better that I knew that my spirit and my heart would connect with, and that was our culture, our tradition, our Cree way of life. And crawling into those sweat lodges, crawling into those ceremonies, that has really helped protect and guide me. And so that's what's really helped me throughout my life is going back and talking to those elders and going into ceremony and reading and about spirit and tuning in and finding peace. And I used to be able to think that once I had landed a good job, I'd get a nice home, and that then I would find peace. But it's actually the other way around. Is you must find peace first, and then everything else will come afterwards. And so I have been protecting my peace and my sobriety like it's my very, very tender, and I protect those. And so where I live out here, I live on an acreage, and so I protect my privacy. I don't let very many people come to my house. And it's because of all about energy, good vibes, and so I like to attract that type of energy, and so I'm very selective as to who I connect with, and which makes me, I guess, a leader in a movement where it's really hard to define what a good leader is, and because of my lived experience and how I grew up, but also learning and sitting in those heavy conversations in those difficult circles, that I gained a lot of knowledge in what happened to us during the height of the 60s scoop, which I would really enhance me to be able to um, s- advocate at a really, really from a really tough side of me, and like I'm always almost like in a protective nature with the other 60 scoop survivors, and I will go to battle. I will be one of the first ones there to go into battle, because I strongly believe what happened to us was wrong, and it was an act of genocide.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, what you're mentioning reminds me of a quote from that movie Gladiator there, where the guy says, "You have a great name. You have to kill your name before he kills you," and meaning
Mm,
the king there or whatever with the gladiator. And yeah,
mhm,
so so what he meant was, I think his name is so big and so powerful, but so he had to change his identity, otherwise,
mhm.
the yeah, and so because I feel the same way too. Like I recently got a name like 2 3 months ago, and it's changed my identity. It's
Mhm.
ELC Danilby Nusto, which is a spotted flying horse, or the closest is speckled
Oh.
flying horse. But yeah, yeah. So and it's given me a whole new outlook on life. And so, like, as we look forward, if a young Indigenous person or another 60 Scoop survivor were listening today and struggling to believe healthy relationships are possible, what would you want them to hear? Like,
Um, um, my my experience and how I grew up, how I lived, that story alone, with writing my book and reading the book, but in a short sentence, I would say that um, you're protected, you're never forgotten, and Creator intended you to be born, and that you have a purpose and you have a mission in life, and it's up to you to find that purpose in life. But you can always reach out to help find that purpose and that life, that purpose and that goal. And once you find that purpose and that goal, then you'll just thrive and get that spirit name. Get enough protocol, whatever nation you're from, to get the protocol. Ask around where who's who's hosting a naming ceremony, and make sure you have your cloth and your tobacco ready, and go get that spirit name, because that's what's going to protect you in life, and it's going to help you grow as well too. And you're not the only one. For years and years and years and years, I thought my sister and I were the only ones that were apprehended and put in an all-Caucasian community, and raised that way. And yet there was literally like tens and thousands of us. And so you're not the only one. And, join our circles. Because, you'll feel so accepted, and you won't feel so lost anymore. And you're never forgotten. You are very well loved.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so that's yeah, that was basically the last question I had there, and yeah, it's great chatting with you. And I don't know if I left anything out, or if there's any other thoughts that you had, or some.
I also encourage survivors to start journaling as to what happened to them. Because I've also taken a grief certification workshop where it really helped me enhance my life, was jotting down what had hurt me in the past, and sitting at a fire and praying, and then burning that paper. And that's a sense of release of that pain as well too. Um, and so, yeah, and also another reason that you could start journaling too is to write your book, to start writing your book. And I highly encourage all you 60 Scoop survivors to write your book, because our stories, we share the same atrocities. Every single one of us share that same those atrocities. There's multiple atrocities, but our stories are so unique and so different. And so I love reading other 60 Scoop stories. I really do, because I can connect, and we can all connect with one another. One big, strong circle.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I could see you've done quite a bit of work on yourself and going through the healing process and things, and
Mhm.
it's really good to see. And I think this is what Indigenous wellness training teach training for the future generations. Because all we're doing is just kind of like blazing a path or a trail or something. Hopefully making it a little bit easier for the future generations. I've interviewed other 60 Scoop survivors as well, and elders too. Like, what's your journey like? And so we could, yeah, learn through that. Like, it may not identically be us, but they've gotten through hard times too as well, and so we could get pearls of wisdom from them. So if we
Right.
find ourselves in those situations, and then we could hopefully remember how they got out of it, and then say, okay, maybe I'll try what they suggested or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So thanks for your time there, and yeah, it was a good interview, and I think, and yeah, I really
Right.
appreciate your time.
Thank you so much and thank you for the invitation. And I just wish you well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So I'll just end it here then.
Okay.